right. Welcome, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
We're just
Really nice to have you here.
making sure we're letting people in. People are joining slowly.
Sarah, we've got a great crowd tonight.
We do have a great crowd.
I'm excited. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I am going to kick things off just because we want to be mindful of everyone's time as we go through our presentation tonight. A couple logistical items. You are here for the Pros Guide to College Visits. So if this is the wrong webinar, you're on the wrong webinar. My colleague Ian and I will be presenting. And we just want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight. A couple logistical things. We are recording this and it will be sent to you after the webinar in your inbox. So look for that in the next couple of days. And we do have a Q&A box that you can throw your questions into. And we have, I think our colleague Christina is here to answer some of your questions as well as we move through the presentation. But Ian and I will try to allow for some time at the end as well for questions and be able to make sure we're hitting everything for you too. So I wanted to start just by telling you all a little bit about CollegeWise if you have not heard of us before. And CollegeWise has been, working with students through the college admission process for over 20 years. And we started in 1999 with our founder, Kevin, just one counselor, kind of working with a handful of students. We've really retained and kept that individualized approach, but we now have 90 plus counselors and about 35 tutors, and we work with thousands of students across the country. We work with all age ranges as well, especially through our academic tutoring. And we as college counselors began working with students sometimes as early as 8th grade, but typically 9, 10, 11, and 12. Our philosophy here at CollegeWise is to make this process as fun and manageable and as sane, that's really important to us, as possible. We know this is a stressful process, but we want to add that sanity into the process. And we really want to equip students and families with advice and knowledge so that you all can make really informed decisions. And so those things that we're helping you with, include building a student's profile and identifying colleges to apply to and strategies on applications and the writing essay process, test prep, curriculum tutoring, really all of those elements together. And a little bit, we're going to sort of introduce ourselves. I'll let Ian go in just a second, but a little bit about, who I am. I graduated from Bowdoin College in Maine, in case you don't know where that is. Some people don't. Small liberal arts college. And I actually ended up after graduation doing a short stint as a teacher. And then ended up finding a career in admissions. And I really loved helping families find schools that were right for them, even if it wasn't the school that I was working at. I stayed in admissions for over a decade, became director of admission financial aid at a couple independent schools in New England. And I ended up, as director, you pour over these applications, hundreds of applications every cycle, you're reading details, you're trying to manage the admission committees and make sure that everybody's doing that hard work to, determine who gets accepted. But now I have sort of the joy of sitting on the other side of that and being able to help families navigate that process and understand the admission process. And then also help students really kind of find who they are and what they love and, where they want to be ultimately. So I'm excited for this webinar because it's going to dive into some of those aspects too. So, Ian.
Hello, friends. It's really, really nice to meet you. So my name is Ian Parker. I am a CollegeWise counselor, and I have been for just about 4 years, actually starting next month. That's going to be my 4th anniversary. It's very, very, very exciting. So I came through a pretty circuitous route to become a college counselor. I graduated from St. Joseph's University, this little tiny Jesuit school in West Philadelphia. I've got a couple of little trivia items for you. When I attended, we all had to learn the lyrics to the opening of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air because our our college was right next to Will Smith's high school, and St. Joe's mascot, the hawk, is in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most flaps during a basketball game. In fact, the mascot literally has to flap his or her wings during the entire game, cannot stop ever, not even once. And so, of course, they get a full ride scholarship for doing that. It's pretty great. After that, I became a teacher, and I actually taught at both the middle and the high school levels. And what I realized during that time was that I really, really loved kneeling down next to one of my students and helping them work through a problem. And that's exactly what I got to do for the next several years as I both taught and as I worked at the Princeton Review as a tutor specializing in both the SAT and the ACT, as well as many of the AP tests, just nothing math. That was my only restriction here. Beyond that, I have come to CollegeWise, again, been there for the past 4 years or so. I've helped over 100 students find, apply to, and succeed at colleges that they love, can get into, and can afford. I do have a little bit of a stutter, so if you ever notice me with my mouth open like a goldfish out of its fishbowl later on, that's what that is, and I'll jump right back into it. But I'm really, really pleased to be here today. We're going to start off with what exactly is a college visit? How should you prepare for one? What happens during one? Because we're going to refer to tours, we're going to refer to visits, we're going to refer to things like admitted students days and things like that over and over and over again throughout this presentation. And it's really, really easy to gloss over, okay, sure, but what is that though? And I think that's a really, really important question to ask. So before you visit any college campus, whether that's going to be for an informal visit where you're just driving around or like walking through the campus really quickly on your way somewhere else, or whether it's a formal visit where you have registered online and you have signed up for an official tour with an official tour guide, the first thing you should always do is you should always start by doing your research into this place, all right? And that is both research into yourself and research into that institution, all right? Both of these items. And I'm going to start with you. Before you set foot onto a college campus, especially if you're a junior, especially if you're a little bit farther advanced in this process, you should stop and think to yourself, okay, what do I expect out of this process? How do I expect to grow in college throughout my applications? And you can think about things like, what do I actually enjoy now? Am I somebody who really loves walking to coffee shops with your friends? Are you somebody who loves the outdoors? Are you a big hiker? Do you love biking? Do you love kayaking? Do you go canoeing? Do you go skiing? Do you love attending sports games? Do you go to the theater, to museums? Do you love cities? Do you love being out in rural areas? Do you like the woods? Think about what you already enjoy, because that's going to be really, really important as you start identifying, okay, what can this college then provide me? Other things you can think about. What is your own personality like? Are you somebody who has always been, who has always found it easy to make really close friends? Are you somebody that other people just naturally gravitate toward? Or are you somebody who's a little quieter? Are you somebody who you have some close friends, but it's a small circle? Are you outgoing? Are you not? Do you want a big circle of people around you? Do you not? Because that's going to be really important when deciding what type of college you might ultimately want to visit and apply to later on as well. And those are important questions to be thinking about as you walk around a college campus. Excuse me. You can think about what you like or dislike about your own high school experience. You can think about how you have interacted with your teachers, with your counselor, with the support staff at your high school. Do you like knowing everybody in your class? Or are you most at home in classes where maybe you don't know that many people? Do you like the possibility of meeting new friends every single year? Because that's going to be a reality at many colleges. If you're attending Arizona State University with its 50,000 undergraduate students, you're going to be meeting new people every single year, no matter what. The second thing you should think about is think about your college priorities. And so that's going to be an extension of these questions that you have just asked yourself. What are your own priorities? What are you actually looking for from a college? If you love meeting new people and you want to meet new people every single day as you're walking around campus, as you're learning in your classes, then maybe it's really important to you to attend a large university where that's going to be a reality. If you're somebody who makes a small circle of very, very close friends, maybe that'll point you more toward a small liberal arts college where it's easier to meet people, where you're invited into activities. The next thing you should do after you've established your research into yourself and your research into your priorities, I want you to think a little bit about your deal breakers. What are you not looking for? What are things that will absolutely make a college experience less enjoyable for you? And again, that's going to be an extension of those questions that you have just asked. And the last thing I want you to do here, I want you to understand the general college landscape, because these are going to be important aspects when you visit these colleges. So you should look into what is the difference between a Bachelor of Arts and a Bachelor of Science. You should look into what is the difference between an undergraduate college and a graduate university. Do I want to attend a college or do I want to attend a university? Those are actually two different things, believe it or not. Do I want to attend a liberal arts college versus a research university? And these might be questions that you are asking yourself after you visit, but you should at least be thinking about what are the difference between these things and which do I find myself most attracted to? Now, how to prepare, this is kind of the easy part here, okay? You do not need to spend a huge amount of time watching every single YouTube video about these colleges before you go. You don't need to have every single question answered. But what you can do is you can easily go to the website, you can easily visit some social media, you can easily see if you can talk to a student if you're around that college, if that's near. Try to find out a little bit of information before you show up so that you can ask questions beyond the basics of, well, that's already on the website. Now, as far as exactly what to expect from an official college visit, and Sarah's going to talk to you a little bit later about some unofficial college visits you can do as well, but I'm going to focus here on the official college visit. So the first thing to know here is that there are many types of official college visits at many colleges. For example, last summer, I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, which is this great kind of engineering and sciences focused college that's on the Central California coastline. And I didn't do the regular tour because I've already done the regular tour. This time I decided, you know what? I have heard that you have some great new residence halls, so I'm going to take your housing tour. And so that's what I did. And I found out about the 7 new residence halls that they've built in a very specific geographic pattern to honor the Native American tribes that have been there. And I found out about their meditation rooms on the top floor of those residence halls. I found out about all the study rooms and the resources that they provide to students living within those residences. It was really, really, really cool. So you can take different sorts of tours, housing tours, business tours, engineering tours. A lot, especially the bigger colleges, might offer multiple different types of tours. Now, once you have actually signed up for that official tour, and it's generally pretty easy to sign up for an official tour, Google name of college plus the word tour, and the first link on Google is going to be a place to schedule that tour. Really, really easy, I promise. When you actually show up for that tour, it may be that the first thing that you do will be kind of an admissions seminar where you will file into a big room and you might be there with a few dozen people or a couple of hundred people. And they'll explain to you what their admission priorities are. What are they looking for from an incoming class? What generally is the admission process? Are there particular essays? Generally, what sorts of test scores or GPAs might a median student have? They might get into their philosophy. of what do we expect to change within our students after 4 years of college. They might get into their academics and the admission process and lead you through exactly what to do while you're applying to that college. Now, this can be before, this can be after the tour, but a lot of times during the tour, there will be an info session where you will learn more about that college from admission officers. And you can generally expect this to be somewhere in the realm of half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, something like that. Then what you're going to do is you're going to pair off with the tour guides. And those tour guides are generally going to be current students, unless there's nobody there. Maybe it's summertime and it's an admission officer that's walking you around. But usually it'll be current students, because those are going to be the ones that are going to be able to tell you what their experience is like. And what they're going to do is they're going to answer questions. They're going to show you around. They're going to tell stories of their time there. Now, what should you do during this tour? Well, you should definitely do what you signed up to do. So if you signed up for that engineering tour, make sure to ask engineering focused questions. This is going to be an engineering student that's leading you on that tour. See if you can maybe gain access to an academic building, if that's okay. Look around, people watch, ask questions. Make sure that you're taking the free stuff. Make sure that that if you are handed resources, that you're grabbing that, asking questions about it, taking it home. And of course, make sure that you are preparing for this tour by bringing a notebook, a water bottle, sunscreen, sunglasses, hat. It can get really, really hot during these tours, especially in southern climates. If you're going to the south, if you're going to Arizona, if you're going to Southern California, it can be really, really, really hot. So make sure that you prepare for this, and then also make sure that you bring an open mind. You're going to hear some things that you didn't know about this college before. And I want you to really consider that in consultation with your priorities that you've already established. The one note of caution that I would issue here is don't feel that you need to write absolutely everything down. If that college was founded in 1878 by Herman J. Melville, that probably doesn't have a whole lot to do with what that college means to you today. And it's probably going to be available on the website if you want to look that up later. So make sure that if you're hearing something that you look up on the website, then maybe skip that for now and focus on the things that are happening around you. I got to say, I'm kind of an old person now, I think. And my big problem at concerts is all the young people around me that are holding up their cell phone during the entire thing and just recording and looking at their cell phone throughout the entire show. Don't be that person on a college tour. Make sure that you're looking around. Make sure that you're taking advantage of what's going on around you right then. A quick note about tour guides. These are students. So they chose that college. They probably love that college. They're probably not going to see a whole lot wrong with that college. So be careful that you're not too influenced by them either way. They're always going to put kind of a positive spin on things, especially when you're in front of the entire group. These are folks who are chosen by the admission office to put a good face on their college. And they're going to be really, really, really useful, I promise you. But you want to make sure that you are asking really great questions of them that are going to push them a little bit, that are going to try to get at, okay, this is great, but what about this other thing? All right. I do find that when you talk to a tour guide following the tour, you will generally get some even better information after that. And last, they're not going to go back and remember your name and tell the admission office about you. That's not their role. That's not what they do. So feel free to ask the questions that you want to ask without any worry that it's going to have any repercussions on your application. Now, why do we visit? So I'm gonna break this apart into 4 kind of quick items here. First off, what goals do we have here? Generally, this is going to be finding out information that is hard to get from a college website. College websites are amazing. I love college websites. I tell all my students to go to college websites all the time because they have really, really great information on there. They're not going to show you everything about a college. And that's okay. That's not what they're meant for. So you can find out here during that tour, what's daily life like? What are the students here like? Does the information that you are experiencing on that college tour match what you saw on the website? So for instance, colleges, a lot of time, I've never seen a college website that did not play up research opportunities. They all talk about research. But there are many, many, many colleges where there are research opportunities, but they are pretty limited. And maybe, 3 students in a class of 80 might have the opportunity to do real research with faculty, right? So you want to make sure that this information actually matches the impression that you're getting from the website, from social media, things like that. You can see how big are the big buildings? How small are the small classrooms? See whether this really does match up with your priorities. And I say that because it's really hard to get a good sense of size. When doing college research with my students, I really like to ask the question of how big of a college do you want to attend? And in order to get to that, because students really struggle with big numbers, what's the difference between a 30,000 student campus and a 50,000 student campus? No one knows. So instead, I like to ask the question, compare this to your high school. If you have 2,000 students at your high school, do you think you'd like to attend a place that is 15 times the size of your high school? And you can actually get a really great impression of what a 15 times size of your high school college is like once you're actually there, walking around, seeing students there, filling up this college campus. You can also see the overall vibe of the college. Are students like laying out in the sun? Are they in the library studying? What are they actually doing? Second, visiting can really help you make a decision. You can figure out whether you actually see yourself here and whether this matches your priorities and whether this is a place that you can actually live at for 4 years. That is a really, really important thing here. Is this a place you can live at for 4 years? This also shows your interest a little bit. Now, Sarah's going to talk about this later on, but demonstrated interest is absolutely a piece of the admissions story at a lot of colleges in America. And showing up and registering your name and saying, I am interested enough in you to actually show up and walk around and spend an hour and a half to 2 hours of my time at your campus, that can say a lot to some colleges. Does everyone have to visit? And I say this in the why visit because not everybody visits. In fact, most students, believe it or not, will never visit a college campus. It is true today, as it has been true for a century, that most students will show up in September or August at their college having never been there before. Now, some students are fortunate enough to be able to visit. And if you're attending this webinar, it's likely that you're one of those students or a parent of one of those students. So if you can, you should try to visit that college campus. You should try to explore and find out what appeals to you. But you don't necessarily need to visit every single college that might be on your list.
Thank you, Ian. That was awesome. Great information. And you'll hear us kind of circle back to some things. And I also, just before I kind of move on here, I just wanted to highlight, unfortunately, our colleague was not able to join us for the chat and help us with the chat, but please feel free to throw your questions in. We'll try to get to as many as possible at the end. But we'll probably save those for later. So we're not kind of doing multiple things at once. So in terms of kind of where do you even start? You know, where are you supposed to be visiting? I wanted to kind of present almost like two scenarios. So the first one is basically very much early on, just starting out. Maybe you're in 9th or 10th grade, perhaps even 11th, and just wondering, how do I begin? And, you know, Ian touched on this, you know, when he was talking about the anatomy of a college visit, that there's different styles and different kinds. And what I usually suggest for students is really just trying some colleges on for size. If you're in those beginning phases, look locally and look around you. You know, what's in your area, your town, your city, what colleges and universities are maybe nearby you. And there's some tools that I like to start with to be able to kind of do a search, because you might not even know that there's a college in your backyard, and you might want to kind of grab a list and just see what's around you, and then start to build from there and decide where to visit. So to find maybe local schools, you could use things, or, you know, in another state is totally fine too, but if you're starting locally, you know, you can use some of these tools that the Princeton Review has, the College Board has, or Niche. And, you know, the difference between some of these sites can be fairly minimal, but you might just want to find one that you really enjoy in the style of it, and utilize that search tool. The College Board is the company that owns the SAT, so that's why you might have heard of that one before. And the difference, I would say, between Big Future and Princeton Review, they have similar search and filter functionality, but I would say that the Princeton Review actually will get you into a little bit more nuanced areas around size of a college. So I actually tend to use Princeton Review a little bit more heavily when I search and are looking for schools for my students. And just because of that, it helps me narrow things down a little bit. But otherwise, they're fairly similar in terms of their filters. You can look at location, you could look in majors if you wanted to. But again, it might be something where you just type in your state and you want to look at, what's in your local area. And niche has, you can see that sort of like little green button on the niche example. Here, they have a little map, which is helpful. So when you can kind of do your filtering and your searching, and you can click on the map, and then you can sort of see it and see where there might be a cluster of schools near you. And so I think, using some of these tools to start with, being able to gain some information from there is a really good jumping off point. And the other thing I always suggest in terms of also like looking in your backyard is trying to look at a variety of different schools in your area. So to sort of help you determine some of the things that Ian was talking about, what you're liking and not liking, maybe go see this really large school. And that might be something of, 15,000 or plus students, 40,000 students if you're, Penn State, for instance. So you want to maybe see a really large environment and then a really small environment, maybe something under 4,000 students, somewhere in that, 2,000 to 4,000 student range, maybe even smaller. Bowdoin College was 1,600 when I was there, still about the same size. So, thinking about looking at a big difference like that can help you. I would also think about, could you go to a city or a suburban school, maybe something with a cute little college town to get the vibe of that and get to see that, and maybe one that is more remote. And I do have a lot of, I would say the majority of my students will say, well, I don't want to go to a place in the middle of nowhere, but I always like to remind my students that, you don't want to dismiss something right off the bat, because oftentimes these schools that are in a little bit more remote locations, oftentimes have really great and maybe perhaps even larger student activity budgets, because they know they're a little bit more remote, and there's, their students are not going off campus to the city. They're not, going down to the college town to a coffee shop. And so they actually have a lot of stuff that happens right on campus. So there's usually activities, there's things to do every single weekend. There's lots going on. And so oftentimes, I encourage students to keep an open mind about location, and that there can still be a lot to do, even if you are a little bit more remote. The other piece of this is, let's say you've already started and you've done a lot of the research that, Ian has outlined, and you've done that sort of in-depth thinking, and maybe you're a junior or you have part of your list already built. And let's say you have, 15 to 20 schools on that list, but you're sort of sitting there going, I don't really want to apply to 15 to 20 schools. That's a lot. And you want to try to narrow it down, and you want to get more specific. The next question really is to ask, okay, well, how do I prioritize my list now? Where do I want to go visit? What is, again, looking at sort of some of your goals of visiting. And one of my suggestions too is making sure that you're not just visiting the reach schools on your list, the schools that you already love, right? Sometimes I have a student who has a dream school. They're like, this is my goal. This is where I want to go. And other times I have students who have 3 or 4 really great options, but they're really maybe reachy options. And you want to make sure that you're giving all schools a chance on your list, and that you're visiting all types of schools. And typically, I would also say, if you're excited about a school, you've probably done a lot of research on it, right? You probably have dove headfirst into that website and pulled out the activities that you're excited about and the professors that you want to study with, and you might be really invested in that school already. So it might not actually be worth your time to go to that school just to confirm what you already know, that you're going to like it, right? So I would definitely say that, you want to give, several schools a chance on your list to try to go and visit and see. One of my students earlier this week said, well, how do I prioritize? Like, I can't go to absolutely every single school. So how do I prioritize this? And I said, well, thanks for helping me in my presentation later this week. So basically, I outlined kind of a couple different strategies for him. One, and I think this is typically the most popular strategy oftentimes, is that you look at this, again, if you've built this list of 15 to 20 schools, you look at that list and you say, can I cluster these by location? Do I have a number of schools in Massachusetts that I can go to? Or maybe there's a pocket in Southern California that I want to travel to and see those schools. Do I want to take a trip to Colorado and do, a little circuit of schools there as well? So you might want to cluster them by location and just see kind of where things are falling within that list. And then maybe you save other schools for another time. You don't have to visit everything right away, as Ian mentions. You don't have to do that, everything all at once. So again, that can be another strategy. And another strategy could be skip all the ones that you want to apply to and visit the ones you're kind of unsure about, you're on the fence about. That visit can really help you confirm whether or not you even want to send in an application. Is it worth your time and energy and your money to submit an application for this school? So you can always, save visits for the schools that you are absolutely sure you're going to apply to, and you can do that later. The other piece is that you could look at the schools on your list and maybe only apply to the schools that track and record demonstrated interest. And this was the thing that Ian said I was going to touch on. So I want to pause for just a minute and talk a little bit about what demonstrated interest is. So the term itself is fairly self-explanatory. It is that you are demonstrating or showing, displaying your interest to a college. And some schools care about this. Some schools do not. The Ivy League schools they don't track this, right? But many other schools do, and it becomes a factor in the admission process when you are applying and as you are a candidate. And part of the reason for this is based on another term called yield. And yield is the number of students that have been accepted by the college that then actually enroll are the students that college has yielded when they actually enroll. That yield number is very important to colleges because it often helps with their rankings. I could do a whole nother webinar on rankings, however, I won't. But that number is important to many colleges, that yield number. So if a college thinks that you might actually enroll with them and that you really like them and that you're excited to go there, they might be more inclined to accept you because then they also know that you might be more inclined to enroll. And so that's where it can come into play. So that's why demonstrated interest can be pretty important in the admission process, again, for those schools that care about that. So you might want to concentrate your visits on schools that care about demonstrated interest. And one thing I always do with my students is I go over their list of colleges. We talk about these schools care about demonstrated interest. These ones do not. Make sure you're concentrating your time on these particular schools with things like visits and maybe other outreach and participation with the admission office and contact and all of that. And, there are, I would say historically, even if a college says that they care about demonstrated interest and they track it, there are some colleges that particularly care about demonstrated interest. I am looking at you, Tulane. I see you. I know that you care a lot about demonstrated interest. If you want to get into Tulane, you better go visit. There's schools like that out there where it's a great thing to ask a counselor is to say, what ones do I really want to focus on? All right. So now you're there. Right? How do I visit? What do I do? What do I do while I'm here? Once you've determined your strategy, your priorities, where you're going to go, what do you want to do when you get there? And there are some different types of visits. And, again, Ian touched on this, but did the formal tour and info session. So I'm not going to go into great detail about that. But you can do things that are called what I like to call drive-bys, where you drive around campus. You might step out and walk around a little bit if you have time, but you're really just getting a sense in the size of the school, and you might observe the types of students walking around. You might look for themes. Are you noticing like everybody's dressed for game day? Are you noticing everybody is, super focused with their head down walking around campus? Like, what does that environment kind of look like for you? So drive-bys can be a really great way to do sort of a casual visit, and still, especially if you're just starting out with the process and you're just, looking, or you don't have time to do a really formal thing at every single college, but you could do maybe a drive-by at one school and a formal visit at another school nearby. Another way is to do a self-guided tour. And this is sometimes something that if you could do just if you wanted to do a self-guided tour, but you could also do if you couldn't get an official tour and information session through the website, if they're all booked up, for instance, and you're like, gosh, but I still really want to go see this school. Many colleges, especially since the pandemic, have given materials that are available for students and families to pick up, and you can do more of a self-guided tour on your own. And again, usually there's materials that you can utilize to help you with that self-guided tour. And one thing I would always encourage, students to do is, even if you're going to do a drive-by or a self-guided tour, I would actually still make sure the admission office knows you're coming. Reach out to them, email them, tell them, hey, I wasn't able to book a session with you, but my family's in town and we really want to walk around campus. Could you point me in the right direction for any self-guided tour materials that you have? Or what suggestions would you do if we are, in the area? Are there places that you think we should see? Reach out, because guess what? That demonstrates interest and they know you're coming. So it's another great thing. You don't want to be like a ghost, right? You don't want to come on campus and go away and nobody knows you were there. So you want to make sure the admission office knows that you are present and interested and coming to see their school. And then a few things, on the slide here, and this again is a little bit time dependent in what you decide to allocate for your time of a visit, but maybe sit in on a lecture style class while you're there. You can always ask the admission office in advance if you could do this. Sometimes you can just pop in and like sit in the back of the room too, and kind of super sleuth your way in. So there's definitely ways that you can sort of be able to see some more classes. Also, since the pandemic, I've noticed a lot of colleges are offering virtual ways to sit in on a lecture too. So that might be a possibility, again, if you can't be there in person. But seeing classes in action can be really, really helpful. Go to lunch in the dining hall and people watch. Don't be creepy, but people watch. Try to get a sense of what conversations are people having over lunch. Are they, debating the demonstration that they just had on campus, a hot political topic? Are they talking about the football game last night? Like, what kinds of conversations are they, talking about the nuances of, cell anatomy from their biology class or whatnot. You want to kind of think about, like, how are people interacting with each other and what are they discussing, and get to kind of just observe that whole scene. And also it gives you a sense of, is the food any good? What kind of options do they have available? And all of those elements. Attend, maybe grab a lunch to go from the dining hall and go have a picnic on the lawn, on the campus lawn. It gives you a sense of the space and the size. And again, you can people watch and get a sense of who's on campus. Events are a really great thing to see. So maybe you're really into theater performances or a concert, or perhaps there's a special faculty lecture that night and you want to attend that, or a sporting event. I would suggest kind of getting on their calendar and looking that in advance and make sure that you are planning that out. However, these things can be really great things to add to your list when you go and visit. I had a student, for example, who went to visit UNC Chapel Hill. She was really excited about, rah, big sports, kind of school spirit schools, and realized that it was actually kind of hard to get tickets to the basketball game. And she said, gosh, like, that's something I really want in college. I want to be able to easily go. And it's something you might want to consider, like, how hard is it to get those sports tickets? And how expensive is it going to be as a student if you want to go all the time to the games? Another thing, stroll around the neighborhood, get a feel for it. Are you walking around hiking trails and you can do Nordic skiing? Is there a coffee shop nearby that you can walk to? Are there favorite restaurants of yours? I had a student, one of her requirements for her college search was Chick-fil-A. She had to be near campus. So, make sure you're finding those things that are important to you. Pick up a school newspaper. Yes, I promise they still print these. I know it seems weird, but they do. So you can also find it online, obviously, but what is the student talking about? Is it, talking about demonstrations they just had? Is it talking about maybe, the relationship between the town and the college? Is it talking about, something with the administration that's going on? Like, you want to kind of get a flavor of what's happening on campus. And so that can be a really good, a good one. And then my last piece of advice, it can be a hard one for some students, and it's a bold one. Start a conversation randomly with a student. And some of my students go, oh my gosh, I could never, right? I could never do that. And that's okay if that's out of your comfort zone. That is okay. You don't have to do this. Although I have a little suggestion for you. But it is a really great way to get some authentic, real answers, not polished answers from the representatives on campus, not from the admission officer. Just get that authentic feeling of, what do you like about this school as a student? I'm a prospective student. What advice do you have for me? What's something you'd change about your college? And Ian's going to go into a bunch of really great questions you can ask too. If you are more of that introvert, I will admit I'm an introvert. So this would have been horrific to me as a student to even suggest doing this. But maybe have your parents do that, right? And if you're embarrassed by that, go walk somewhere else and have them walk somewhere else. And they can go ask some students some questions, and then they can report back to you later. So you don't have to sort of witness this interaction if it makes you squirm a little bit. But that, I think it is a really great way to do to get some really authentic information. So Ian, I'm going to kick it back over to you.
All right. So I would say that the most popular question I ever get about college visits is, Ian, what even am I supposed to ask? How do I add value here? And fortunately, there's a really, really easy, simple piece of advice I have for you. And it's a don't. Normally I like to say do's, but this is a don't. My best advice, don't ask questions that you can easily find on the website. So things like, what majors do you have? Things like how many students are here? You can find that out on the website. Try to stick to things that the person that you're talking to will be able to weigh in on and provide a really, really unique answer to. So I really like to kind of divide up really great questions into different buckets. So I'm going to start with questions about academic opportunities. So you can ask, for instance, who's your favorite professor and why? And this could be a question that you direct right at your tour guide. You can ask them, do any of your friends do any sort of research? What kind of research? How accessible is research for undergrad students? Are you able to just go up to a faculty member and have a reasonable chance to be able to participate in their upcoming study? These are really great questions for your tour guide. If you're ever talking to somebody in faculty, you can ask them things like, what are your goals for this program that you're in? What qualities would you like to see more of incoming students in your classes? What are the coolest courses in your department? And they would love to weigh in on that if you get a chance to talk to a professor. You can also ask of your tour guide or of the admission officer, how easy is it to switch majors? How easy is it to take classes within a different college within the university? especially for larger universities where you might have different colleges for different sorts of programs. Switching between them often can be a little bit of a pain. So you can ask about what is the ease of switching between these, and that might be best focused for your admission officer. You can also ask about social life, and that's my second bucket here. So one of my absolute favorite questions here for tour guides is, tell me, what are students doing on a Tuesday night versus what are they doing on a Friday night? And if that's a campus where on a Friday night, all the students are in the library studying, that tells you a lot about that school. If that's a campus where on a Tuesday night, every student is out partying, that tells you a whole lot about that campus. Now, normally there's going to be a little bit of a difference between a Tuesday night and a Friday night, but it really, really gets at what is the vibe of this school? What are students doing here? You can also ask things like, what do you like most about this college? What would you change about this college if you could? For tour guides, what qualities do you and your friends have in common? And that can tell you what kind of students actually attend. You can ask about what was the last most popular event on campus that got more than 100 students there. And that's going to give you a good sense of traditions. And you can ask about the type of students that college is looking for. So for instance, I really like the question about what kind of students are not going to do well here. And that gets at a little bit of a strange question for admission officers and tour guides, I think, because normally they're asked what kind of students go here, right? So you can ask them the opposite. What kinds of students are not going to do well here? And that's going to make them stop and think and say, huh, I hadn't thought about that before. But they're going to actually think about it and give you a real authentic answer here. You can ask things like, what's the relationship like between the town and the college? I had a really great tour of Yale about 6 months ago. And I stopped to talk to the tour guide for a good half hour, 40 minutes after. And we just talked exclusively about the terrible relationship between Yale University and its town of New Haven. And kind of the effect that has on the students in the town. It was really, really interesting and eye-opening. You can ask them, what's something you've learned to live with because you like everything else about this school? And then my last bucket here, admission and support. So for admission officers, what qualities do you yourself get excited by when you're reading an application? What surprised you the most about coming here is something you can ask for your tour guide. And then last, if a student is struggling, where exactly do they go? What kind of resources exist for a student who's struggling in their classes, struggling emotionally, struggling making friends? Where can they go? What resources exist for them? And then I have a couple of bad questions for you. First off, anything you can find on the website, obviously not a great question. Spend your time asking better questions than that. But also second, and this is actually one I see a lot. How is your XYZ department? How is your computer science major? If you're asking that of an admission officer, my question to you is, what do you think they're going to say? Our computer science department is terrible. No, they're going to say it's great. Of course, they're going to say it's great. So that's not a particularly useful question that you can ask, but one that I've seen many, 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 many times in my experience. Now, there's a couple of different timelines that I want to quickly go over here, and really kind of getting at the two purposes of visits, I think. Deciding where to apply versus deciding where to attend. And these come at sort of different points. Both are totally fine. They're both really, really great reasons to go visit a college. Generally, the approach is going to slightly differ depending on the two, right? So when you're deciding where to apply, this is where you're still trying to figure out what kinds of colleges do you want to apply to? What things appeal to you? What things don't? You're still in the process of figuring out, what does college look like for the next 4 years after high school? Whereas after you've been admitted to a bunch of colleges, and this could describe if any families of seniors are watching right now, there's still time to go visit. You have until May 1st to make that decision, unless you submitted a enrollment deposit. You can go to those colleges at this point, and you can confirm what you saw during that original visit or during your original research, and try to figure out, is this a place where I can actually spend 4 years of my life? You can attend things like admitted student stays if you've already been admitted to that college, versus maybe sitting in a classroom and seeing a lecture if you haven't. You can talk to professors. There are different questions for different purposes, where if you've already been admitted there, it might be more planning and figuring out, what do these 4 years look like as I'm moving through this major? Whereas if you are deciding where to apply, it might be more, what do I even want to major in? Right? So kind of different stages here. And that's okay to have different outcomes there. But fundamentally, for both types of visits, you're trying to see, does this place actually continue to fit my priorities? And last, timelines. When are students doing this? When you're deciding where to apply, even if you're not quite at the deciding where to apply stage, generally sophomore through junior year is a really, really great time to apply right now. That's why we're having this webinar right now for maybe sophomores and juniors who are starting to think about college. And the springtime is actually a really, really great time for that. There was a question in the Q&A box, and I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to address that directly, but I'll do it now, about visiting during the summertime. And visiting during the summertime is absolutely valuable. I would argue that it's probably slightly less valuable than visiting during the spring or fall when students are actually there and you can see students, but there absolutely is value even in visiting during the summer, because you get to see, what does this campus feel like as I'm strolling through here? And you get to ask these very, very specific questions, some of which I've just gone over, that are beyond what you might see on that, for instance, college websites.
Awesome. So I'm going to touch briefly on essays, and you might say, wait a second, I thought we were talking about college visits tonight. But many of you probably know that there is a personal statement or, a main college essay that is sent to every college that you apply to. But what you might not know is that there are also supplemental essays. And these are ones that are very specific to the college that you are applying to. And these essays tend to be on average about 250 words, but they can range, smaller, larger. And I wanted to kind of go over, we typically see these typical questions and themes, archetypes, if you will. There's probably 4 or 5 kind of archetypes of supplemental questions, and I wanted to concentrate on 2 of them. The first one is the why us supplemental essay. Lots of colleges have this kind of question. So Barnard, for instance, what factors encouraged your decision to apply to Barnard College, and why do you think it's a good match for you? Boston University, what about being a student at Boston University most excites you? Columbia, why are you interested in attending Columbia University? We encourage you to consider the aspects that you find unique and compelling about Columbia. Or Bard, why Bard? Simply stated. And so you'll see slight differences in the language, but essentially these colleges want to know, have you done your homework? Have you done your research? And what do you like about them, and do you know yourself well enough to know that this is a good fit for you? And so you want to be able to use your visits to discover those things that are cool and unique about the college that then you can infuse into your supplemental essay. So take notes on your college visit. It's very, very important. You'll hear me say this over and over again. The other kind of archetype that I wanted to mention tonight was the why major example. Some example colleges: Purdue. Briefly discuss your reasons for pursuing the major you have selected. Pretty straightforward. Tufts. It's cool to love learning. What excites your intellectual curiosity? Cornell. Students in arts and sciences embrace the opportunity to delve into multifaceted academic interests, embodying in 21st century terms Ezra Cornell's, quote, any person, any study, founding vision. Tell us about the areas of study you are excited to explore, and specifically why you wish to pursue them in our college, right? So again, some nuances in language there. However, you want to be able to articulate and discover kind of on your tour, and maybe in further research, what it is that you like about a particular area of interest academically, maybe a specific major, and why that school has programming that is good for you in that major. So again, after your visit, jot down those notes that are unique, elements that stand out to you, maybe things about the community that excites you, knowledge or details about the major that you found out, and be able to take those notes and have them later. So when you're writing these essays, you can highlight that. Yes, you might have to do a little bit more digging on the website or follow up with the admission office. Maybe you follow up with a faculty member or current students, but the college visit should give you a good head start on helping you with those essays. We could also do a whole hour on essays. And just a couple of tips. Please avoid the marathon tour. This is the Boston Marathon. It's my favorite day in Boston. But this image, you don't want to be that guy, right? In that image. with only so much time, it could be tempting to just do like 30-minute spins around New England and go to every single college campus because they're all clustered right there. But most students really will tend to burn out and things start to blur together. So I always recommend only doing 2 visits a day, maybe 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. Allow yourself time to do those other suggestions that we said. Get to know the area, get to know the school. I'll say it again, don't visit only reach schools. Boston, again, is a popular college destination, but if you only stop at Harvard and MIT, you're not really giving yourself chances to get to know other schools and schools that might be more likely to accept you too. Bring snacks, bring water. If you're hungry and your energy level is low, your mood is going to affect the view of the college. The weather can affect this too. So try to push beyond those. Make sure you're not hangry when you're doing your college tours. And then definitely leave room for fun. You want to kind of be these students on the right-hand side, having a blast in the fountain, right? Don't get in trouble for diving in fountains at colleges, but do make sure you have fun. If your family is like really into like donuts, go find the best donut shop in town. Make sure that you're infusing that. This should really be an exciting time for you to discover, what things you love. And so don't kind of over plan things so that it feels like a chore. All right, so I'm going to throw things back to you, Ian.
Now, I mentioned earlier that not everybody visits every single college. Please, please, please do not feel that you have to visit every single college that you or your child will be applying to. Nobody does that. So don't feel that you need to. All right, you don't have to get on a 3,000-mile cross-country series of flights in order to apply to college. Seriously, because there are other equally great ways. I think maybe not equally great, but very, very valuable ways to learn more about these colleges beyond official tours. So, for instance, many colleges host what are called fly-in programs, especially for students who might not otherwise be able to make it to that college campus. If you live in California, and it's hard for your family to be able to afford to get on a plane and fly to New York, there are lots of college campuses that will make a special effort to reach out to those types of students. Once you are admitted to colleges, there are amazing, amazing admitted students programs that are actually going on this month and next for students who are admitted to a particular campus, where you get to show up there, you get to hang out with other students who've been admitted to your same program, you get to talk to faculty. You get to explore the labs, you get to have a tour of the surrounding town. You might even be able to stay overnight. It's really, really, really cool. There is also social media. Now, I know you're seeing social media and you're like, Ian, Facebook is not going to give me a good idea of what's going on at this college. And, maybe you're right. But if you seek out social media where colleges are really highlighting the things that are important to them, and you're making sure to take that with a little bit of a grain of salt, and maybe you're looking at kind of what students are saying as well, you can actually get a really great idea of what individual schools are proud of and what students are actually talking about. One of my favorite strategies actually is to go to a college's subreddit. So if you're not familiar with that, Reddit is a social media website that has what are called subreddits that are individual topics that focus on particular topics. And so you can go to the subreddit for California State University Fullerton, and it's going to be exclusively students who are at CSUF and talking about CSUF and asking questions about it. And it's really great to see what students are actually doing. I mentioned virtual tours earlier. After COVID, every college in America invested a whole lot in virtual tours that will actually allow you to click a link and actually just kind of like sometimes even like walk around their campus with your computer. A lot of times it might be videos, but you'll be able to get a really great sense of what is this college even like. And the last thing I want to mention here is college fairs. There are amazing, amazing, amazing college fairs taking place all around you, probably over the next few months. One that I'm going to especially promote right now is our professional organization, the National Association for College Admission Counseling. We call it NACAC. Yes, it has a funny name. They are doing they're doing 2 more virtual college fairs this month and next. And literally just Google NACAC college fair, and you'll be able to find the registration button for the virtual fairs. And there are hundreds of colleges represented there, including a sort of traveling circus that might be coming to a city near you. I really, really, really love college fairs. Now, finally, After the dust settles, after you've done this tour, after you're done, after you're back home off the plane, there are a couple things that are really, really effective that you can do. So first off, I want you to hang out and I want you to reflect and I want you to just take some time and think about what you saw, what you heard, what you experienced. Try writing down these thoughts. Now, I'm a teacher at heart. I know that when you translate information from your brain into writing, when you transform it like that, it embeds itself a little bit better in your brain, and you can actually think a little bit better about it and put it more into context. What was the vibe here? Did you like this college? What specifically did you like? Writing these things down is really going to help you consider that particular college. Second, check your email. If you registered for an official tour, or if you registered for an information session, or if you talked to a college representative, or if you visited a booth at a college fair, you likely gave somebody your email address. And they're going to start emailing you and showing off their college because they're really proud of it and they want you to attend. And that's a really great way to learn more. So check your email. Students, I know you don't like checking your email. Check your email for this. Last, did somebody help you when you were on that college tour? Was there a super helpful faculty member? Did that tour guide stay behind for half an hour to talk to you like the Yale college tour guide did for me a couple of months ago? Send them a thank you note. Get their name. You can probably find their email address. You can ask the admission office to show you their email address or the school mailbox, and shoot them a thank you note. You always want to thank people who are helping you. But really stop and reflect and think about what you saw while you were there. That's my best advice here. Now, I want to showcase a couple of ways that CollegeWise can help. First off, folks, it is AP exam season. I know it seems early. I know I don't like it either, but it is AP exam season. We have amazing tutoring and academic support services. Just go to collegewise.com/tutoring. I'm also going to put up a poll right now that just asks you one quick question, and I would love everybody here to just quickly answer that poll. Yes, no, maybe so. Anything's okay with us. We also have amazing resources, including, folks, our college visit guide. It is I believe it's 30 pages long of just amazing advice that goes far beyond what we were able to present today. And if you go to collegewise.com/resource, you'll actually be able to see that and download it. We have lots of other guides and resources as well. And last, you can always talk to an advisor if you are thinking about working with us, if you'd like to talk to a counselor, if you'd like to get an hour of our time, you can absolutely do that. Head to collegewise.com/contact. We were so excited to have you here. And Sarah, if we could just go to the next slide really quick. There we go. I don't think we have time for questions, but I was able to answer most of them. There was one question I want to get to really quickly that came up a lot, and that was, how do you tell if a college tracks demonstrated interest? Generally, the big state schools are not going to be tracking demonstrated interest. If you go to UCLA, they don't care if you visited or not. The small liberal arts colleges might actually care, but the best way to find out, ask the admission office. They will always tell you whether demonstrated interest is something that they factor in when they're looking at applications. Now, I've put up my email address here, ianp@collegewise.com. You can always contact Sarah t@collegewise.com. We are on all of these social medias. And we are really excited that you spent some time with us. I really want to thank you all for coming. We had a blast.
Thank you.